Hello everybody, welcome back.
My name is Icarix and he's Kunagusis. And
Yes, and we are
just plugged me
continuing.
right into a session when he outright heard me saying that I wasn't ready.
Oh, just shut up,
so...
will you? Anyways, we are back to our Seleukidai campaign, and we are in our war with ATROPATKAN.
That sounds like a real bummer.
What's such a bummer?
So they just turned their backs on each other. They just wussed out at the last second. Okay, well, I guess that's typical.
Anyways, so we are attacking Armavir, or encircling it. I think we're hoping that the stack outside attacks, but no, we just ought to resolve it. I suppose the last session where we had a bit of a sally, so yeah. Memory's a little hazy because we've done things the other way around. We recorded the video that comes after this before doing this because somebody got mixed up.
We have a bit of a shortcut in our circuits, you know, so yeah, you might be a little bit confused by commentary in our next video, but rest assured we will make sure that this lines up with continuity pretty well enough. So.
I don't think it was anything too major, it's just we're recording this now and we recorded the next part yesterday. But anyways, so we merge up some of our units and start disbanding a couple. So we can do some slight restructuring when we can.
Who are we hoping to replace them with?
Well, certainly get some silver shields in.
Oh yeah, silver shields are pretty handy.
Yeah.
Can you get like actual golden shields, or have they not been a thing now?
They're not a thing. Golden shields are not a thing.
So silver shields are the highest you can get up to.
That's just it's just that's what the regiment was called because their shields had silver and they're based off of an earlier regiment of Alexander the Great.
Oh right, I thought it was like a form of ranking or something.
No, it's not a form of ranking. It's just that.
It's just a name, really.
Yeah, so it's kind of a nickname that just sort of stuck and became the official name, I think. The Silver Shields was a regiment of hypaspists that served under Alexander the Great. Now, how exactly they were equipped and fought is not entirely clear. I think they were probably geared like hoplites. They were made up of veterans. And the Seleucids were the only ones to keep the Silver Shields, but they seem to have transitioned into being more like pike troops by this point. And they were the elite of the Seleucid military.
I'm surprised no one else adopted this. I'm surprised no one else adopted the system because it sounds like silver shields were handy to have. You know,
like the others did have their own way of doing things, but they just did things different. Like the Seleucids were seemed the only one to retain the name Hetyroi for their cavalry guard.
Really, the only ones.
As far as I know, I think the others were generally just called up stuff like Hiera Ile. Or Basilica Ile, which means like Royal Squadron or Sacred Squadron. So,
it's strange though. You'd think in all the other armies would sort of adopt their own sort of spin on it, even if it's not exactly the same way the Seleucids did it. You know?
I don't know. They each had their own way of preserving onto that legacy, and it's just the way they chose to do things. I don't know the full specifics or length and breadth why. Just that's the way it seemed to be.
Yeah, to each his own, I guess.
The bronze shields came quite a bit later. The bronze shields I think were a regiment in the Antigonid military. This is Macedon. The Seleucids got them at a later date than what is shown here. So we got an attack from ATROPATKAN. We are defending Armavir. Should go easily enough.
I see we decide to stick it out and see how it goes.
Well, obviously the odd resolve is not in our favour.
If we are victorious and live, I will sacrifice
So how's this area important?
Well, we don't want to lose a settlement we just captured. We don't want to lose the army inside the settlement. And it has gold.
Oh, okay. Gold's pretty handy to have, so yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so who do we have here now?
Various Persian type soldiers coming. The satrap guard spearmen. Armored spearmen with no shields, but have bows. But we are protecting our areas with our pikemen.
Our phalanx is up and ready.
Phalanges, I suppose you could probably better call it. It's the plural. Phalanges.
Is that how they're pronounced?
Phalanx. And then I think the plural is phalanges.
What's the difference between all of them, or are they basically just the same
I'd
way
say
of
one's just singular,
same...
one is plural.
Are they the same way of describing the same formation?
It's what I'm saying is it's regarding singular and plural. So singular would be phalanx.
Oh, right.
Plural,
right. So
I think it's something like
describing how
phalanges.
many there are.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
But yeah, so we have our, so it's just Chalcaspides until we get the Argodaspides. So yeah, we have our Seleucian Peltasts as our ranged force.
So is everyone in the opposing army Persians?
More or less, Persians. This is a Persian faction, basically. So yeah, our pikes are holding the enemy at bay.
If only we had a big, huge hole to kick everyone into, that'd be handy.
Huh. 300 reference.
Why not?
Ah yes, the Battle of Thermopylae. The first Battle of Thermopylae, basically. And the most famous one.
So it's the only one worthy making a movie out of.
Not really. I think the other ones are pretty damn, would be interesting enough to see in film. It's just it's the most famous one.
What happened in the other two Thermopylae battles, actually?
The second Battle of Thermopylae was centuries later. And that was when the Celts invaded Greece. I don't remember too much of the details. I'd need to read up on it again. But yeah, that'd be an interesting chapter in general, though, the Celtic invasion of Greece. I don't think many people know about that. And the other one was in the Roman Seleukid War, when Antiochus III, or Antiochus the Great, got into a clash with Rome, the Roman Republic, and his first battle was in Thermopylae, where he had a force of about 10,000 strong, I believe, up against an numerically superior Roman army. And he lost. And probably most of those casualties were his silver shields.
Ouch.
Which is thought to explain, at least from reading Duplessis, why the silver shields were deployed in a somewhat unusual way at Magnesia. I suppose the best thing to do would probably be to overwhelm at least possibly one side with ranged force. And then they could charge in.
Well, maybe the horses, maybe your cavalrymen here could make a difference.
No, they're going to do worse against the phalanx.
Jeez, you were kidding. Why are they there? Back! Get back!
Because I think in general, horses would not want to be charging into a big pile of men with sharp sticks.
These horses don't like them, no.
That's the one that's not very realistic about having cavalry charge into some densely packed formation. That's very difficult to achieve if at all possible, because horses really don't want to do that. But yeah.
Would there be any, or is there any other efficient way of getting past the phalanx formation? Like, aside from trying to overwhelm them in general, like, could you sneak on
best
them
guess,
from behind, or?
The best way to take out a phalanx would probably be to hit them at the flanks or the rear, where they're vulnerable, because they're good at a head-on engagement. So, in the case of the game for the AI, they could possibly overwhelm a phalanx. It's not impossible to overwhelm a phalanx in game, certainly, but what the AI would probably have to try and do would be to soften it up sufficiently with enough range force. Soften up the phalanx enough so that it gets overwhelmed more easily.
And this would, this same form of strategy that would apply for real world military stances as well. Would it?
It could, but again, I think it depends on a lot of factors, and terrain is another big thing.
Oh yeah, definitely terrain.
I think
really depends
good,
on where you
even,
are,
flat ground.
positioned they are basically.
I think good, even ground is ideal for a phalanx.
And
now, I think Polybius kind of like to think the Romans were good at taking on the phalanx in part because their whole system was decentralized. Chain of command was decentralized.
These guys in particular are pretty well defended because they have phalanx. They're in a town, first of all, so they've got multiple angles to work with, and also they pretty much have a phalanx formation around every corner. Like there's one position. Like,
well, I suppose there's one opening there, but I've got a lot of melee infantry there, so.
It could also just be because you conveniently just didn't have enough forces for that single opening. But it's like...
But it's covered by other forces, basically.
But it's like... I would assume it's a small enough gap that it wouldn't be a huge issue in the long run.
Wouldn't really be an issue. Again, like troops that can help cover it, if need be.
Few persons have made it in now.
Yeah, we have our Cappadocian Lancers. Going to charge them to the back of the Sparabara. No, that's hammer and anvil tactics.
What are hammer and anvil tactics again?
That is, the phalanx is the anvil, the cavalry is the hammer.
Oh, okay.
And our Galatians are engaging the enemy axemen. So yeah, going pretty well. Our Galatians are engaging.
Seem to be holding up pretty well down there.
Well, our Galatians are pretty solid spearmen here.
Can spearmen hold themselves pretty well against wielding axemen?
Yeah, well, I guess this is where troop quality is an important factor here. Well, I suppose if you're talking about in game, swords, axes would usually have an advantage against infantry. Think of it as like a rough pyramid. Think of it like even rock, paper, scissors, actually.
Okay.
You know how one beats one but loses to the other.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's say swordsmen are your scissors, they cut paper, and say the paper is your spearman. In theory. And then paper covers rock, and that will be your cavalry. And the rock breaks scissors, which is your swords. Do you get the idea?
Yeah, I'm visualizing it well enough.
On paper, cavalry being the rock means it has the advantage over the scissors, the swords and axe troops. Spearmen being the paper means they're good against the rock, the cavalry, but not so good against the scissors, that is the sword. Of course, it's more complicated. Quality is a big factor. A high quality spear unit could beat back a unit of lower quality swords or axes. Similarly, I guess high quality swordsmen could beat back cavalry, particularly when it's lesser cavalry. So that's one aspect to consider among others. Fatigue is another thing, experience, other buffs and stuff. But in a broad outline, I think historically the spear is probably one of the really effective weapons. And, so you generally would, I suppose swords might still be better if you're really up close and personal, but spears are usually pretty good, especially giving you a good distance.
Oh yeah, especially distance.
And they don't take that much skill to use, unlike swords. Yeah. We see our cavalry's attacking the enemy range troops. Well, mainly our Cappadocian lancers, but yeah.
I saw briefly that they replaced one phalanx formation for another.
Yeah, I kind of rotated them out a bit.
You can do that?
Well, just pull them back and have another one quickly come in to fill in that gap. It's a little risky, but yeah, you could do that.
It looked as though there were still a good few spears left intact while they were switching out, so it didn't look like that much of a risk.
Well, it's a sense that maybe they might at that moment take heavy losses, being vulnerable.
I suppose it's worth the risk then.
So our Loncoporoi have hit the enemy archers. I think they're archers, either that or whatever, slingers, but yeah. We got some spearmen nearby.
Like an army of locusts.
And that's our guard cavalry regiments, the TWR2 DEI. We're moving our spearmen down. So yeah, chasing the enemy down. Their phalanx is holding pretty well.
Yeah, the Persians on that side just keep coming. I think they won't give up, despite the fact that it's hopeless.
But yeah, so... Also, that the 300 film is based off of a comic book.
Oh, I know.
Graphic
Mark
novel.
Miller.
So it's heavily fictionalized and stylized compared to the actual history. Like, it wasn't just 300 Spartans against loads of Persians. It was more like 300 Spartans and a couple of thousand additional Greeks back in the phalanx. Also, the Spartans were not bloody bare-chested. I don't think they were bare-chested fighting. They would have worn armour. Probably a muscled cuirass. Yeah, they probably would have worn a muscled cuirass. Also, I think the shields would have been painted. I don't recall the shields in 300 being painted.
Yeah, that's just artistic license working in effect. Gonna make it more interesting somehow.
So what, do you think it's more interesting seeing bare-chested dudes with plain shields fighting, or dudes in pretty interesting looking armor with nice fancy painted shields?
Probably the latter option.
Yeah. See it? Regulations there are fighting the enemy infantry. A nice rear charge from our cav.
Making short work of them there.
I think I talked before that expert charge defense got removed from most spear units.
Why?
Because it was kind of bugged and not really working too well. I think the problem is it could sometimes, if a unit's hitting the rear, it could trigger.
Do you think they'll ever fix that in the future mod?
If they can, I don't know, it's a game problem. The way I understood is what expert charge defense does is it's meant to reflect the damage of a charge back onto the charger. Be pretty effective against cavalry. The problem was sometimes if hitting the flank or the rear, it could trigger. And that meant a cavalry unit would take lots of casualties in a charge against a spear unit in the back when it shouldn't be the case, because how can they reflect the charge back? They've been hit in the back.
So in a sense, it's just like accidentally way too overpowered, basically.
A little bit, yeah. So they got rid of it, but they had to make a few changes to keep things balanced. Otherwise, it's just a bit wonky if it was removed. I think what Cam said they did was, I think they buffed up spear unit mass and they improved their bonus versus cavalry. So yeah. That's what they did, I think, to try and fix the issue. So yeah.
Oh, who's that coming up on the rear? Oh, Jesus.
The cavalry. I think it's the Hittyroi. Nope, the Agama. My mistake. So yeah, we're winning the battle steadily.
Yeah, they keep going at us, but they won't back down. They're also making it worse for themselves.
I suppose another way to beat a phalanx unit was an even better phalanx unit.
Phalanx on phalanx action, basically.
Yes.
How exactly would that go down? Because I'm kind of curious now. How would a phalanx be able to take down another phalanx? Basically, is they're basically just standing there defending themselves against a bunch of spears?
Well, they'd be kind of moving in steadily, jabbing each other with the spears. You know, like Rafi, I think, was basically phalanx and phalanx action. It was more than that, of course. There was more aspects to it. There was elephant battle. You know, other sorts of troops around the wings. I think Rafi could be kind of interesting to see depicted on a big screen.
I thought elephants weren't really a huge fan of spears themselves.
I'm talking elephants on elephants.
Oh, elephants on elephants. But I mean, like, if you were to... I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you were to try to get an elephant to take down a phalanx, I'm assuming it really wouldn't go well for the elephants as well.
Probably not head on. Maybe if you maneuver them around, they could do a lot of damage.
But, like, in front of the phalanx, it would be the same situation as the horses, basically. It just wouldn't be a good idea.
Pretty much. Of course, elephants are probably can be a little difficult to control, so...
And they also have armor on them as well.
They could. Not always, but they could. Elephants weren't always covered in armor. That's very expensive.
And a few of the Syrian elephants I saw.
Well, yeah, the Syrian elephants, the unit does, and I'm talking at least historically. But elephants weren't always armored. Sometimes they were. And to make them...
That's all I'm saying though, like, armored elephants could probably be a little bit trickier, I suppose, against the spears.
A little bit. I think the thing with elephants is it's not a huge amount in their armor, and all armor does is just means it absorbs a certain amount of damage they could take. But mass and HP are probably the more important aspects of elephants in game.
Yeah, I suppose.
Most of the stats don't really matter. Don't really do anything. As far as I understand, it's mostly just their charge, the mass, and the HP and armor. So, like, when an elephant charges, it's the mass and speed that determines the initial damage, and then their charge bonus comes as an extra little bit of, call it flavor. To the damage, and that's the way it works. It's the way it works, I think, for cavalry also, and chariots. The charge bonus is an extra damage calculator.
A heroic victory, is it? It feels more like a show of force than anything heroic.
Heroic usually means if like the odds were not too well in your favor and you won with not so bad casualties. I think that's when the game considers heroic. Because you've decisive victories, you have close victories, you've Pyrrhic victories and heroic victories.
I was under the impression that the odds were heavily stacked in our favor for that last battle.
This is regarding the auto-resolve balance though. The balance bar. It determined the battle was not much in our favor.
Oh, okay then.
But we won it with we won the battle with, I wouldn't say minimal, but low enough casualties. Yes, we placed a dignitary or governor at Ecbatana to try and begin negotiating a purchase.
Hopefully that all goes well.
Well, to spoil the next part, that was shown in the next part, which we just did, it went well. But yeah, now we're just chasing down the army remnants.
Chasing down the Forgotten Warriors. The pretty stupid name. How can you forget warriors? But okay.
And we kill the captives.
And we're facing off against the might of Heracles.
No, we are the might of Heracles.
We hunger for battle.
I see we're attacking
Meteshka. Meteshita, actually. My mistake.
On the move. At your we hunger for battle.
What do we decide to do here? We decide to... it looks like we're settling on sacking, and we decide to... I think we decided to sack there.
We sacked it, yes.
welcome here, and speak as you wish, without fear of consequence or danger.
So we're gonna get trade with Bosporus. With the
Between
Bosporan
friends,
Kingdom.
the gift of gold is often taken to be a sign of deep affection and respect.
That's a Greek colony in the Bosporus, kind of around Crimea.
One sacrifice is needed
Yeah.
on the altar of our goodwill. We are a mighty people, well
Yeah, that's the
in the
thing,
uses
kind of around the
wealth.
Crimea region.
Excellent.
Yeah, we've started
A
Matia
flapping tongue that speaks without wisdom is not
and
well.
Skitike.
Your offer is fit. The gods will have me listen to you.
Yeah.
This is fair.
Yeah, using Summary's Greek map Mosaic font mod, so that changes the font of the map to Greek.
We have good reason to.
Greek names in the Greek script.
Nice bit of
The
historical
pleasures of
accuracy
my
there.
household are
It's
yours.
probably more just immersion, but
We
yeah,
had her-
which I like. I mean, I know how to read Greek to a certain degree, so it's handy.
Have you ever visited Greece?
Nope.
Do not try my
I'd like to.
patience with a dull tongue. My torturer
I visited
has a
Greece once.
collection of
I went there
balanced
last summer.
vowels.
Actually, I went there in the summer of 2022. Actually, can't remember exactly where I was, but it was a nice area actually.
Yeah, I'd like to visit Greece myself.
Actually, where we were next to an island where they shot some scenes for the second Glass Onion movie. I can't remember the name of it exactly, but we were living next to the area where they shot some scenes for the movie there actually. So that was pretty cool to find out.
Nice. So, we failed to negotiate a favourable peace agreement with ATROPATKAN, so we started to loot and occupy the settlement.
Well, that's a Greek tragedy if ever I've heard one.
We don't plan to hold on to it necessarily.
We're just there for the money and nothing else.
Well, I have plans, you see. I think my thinking here is I'd hold on to it for now. I'll defeat ATROPATKAN's last settlement, subjugate them, and then sell them that settlement, the provincial capital. Sell it to them.
God, that's ingenious.
You know, make a bit of cash. They get a bit more settlements they can grow.
The spirits have noticed that our treasure stores are
The
wanted. Can
Seleukidai,
you help with this small
the
matter?
Scythians. They want non-aggression, I give it to them, so I don't want to deal with bloody
I
Scythians.
dare not ask much for my...
Lost a trade agreement with Cyrene there.
That's a shame.
Probably got swallowed up by Egypt.
The sands of Egypt cover everything, apparently.
We see they're like a rival state to the Ptolemies. So yeah.
A good few wars going on there. It's impossible to keep track of.
Yeah. I suppose a fair few wars we got going. But I suppose this is a game called Total War, so what do you expect?
Your orders.
The Heroes Among Men. That's an interesting army name.
Actually, you know yourself. These are auto-generated names, of course. I've thought of trying to change names up, but I haven't been bothered.
So these aren't actually real armies. They're just made up for the game. Is that it?
They're just auto-generated names.
They come up with some pretty funny names. I'll give them that.
No, yeah, see, I don't think armies had specific names, at least not that we know of.
I would have thought that like armies back then needed to be identified as something, you know, aside from like what kind of army they
I
are.
suppose to some degree you probably wouldn't have had as many like active large armies as we get here. You know, it was probably mostly the king led an army for a war. Maybe he had a couple of generals to assist him. Along that line. Like, Rome had legions, and they were named, like, 10th Legion, 21st Legion, whatever, you know. But, again, Rome's kind of more like an exception of sorts, rather than the rule.
So it's not exactly common, basically.
Again, even the idea of, like, you're talking about in like the days of Imperial Rome, when they had several large standing armies. That's quite rare in the ancient world.
Still, though, it doesn't really change. It doesn't change the fact that some of the names the game auto generates are pretty cool. I mean, like you've got.
Well, I guess yeah, because CA kind of goes, oh, that would sound cool and kind of thematically fitting. So they go for it and they put it in to a pool. That's the way it works.
I guess I'm just surprised it was never a thing back in reality.
Well,
honestly,
we may not.
It would be
Maybe
handy.
it was, but we don't know. So I don't think it's ever mentioned.
There are no sources to verify this.
Not that I know of. I don't think they ever talk about, oh, such and such army of such and such name. It's just the king had his army at this place, or this general led this army to this place, sort of thing. At least that's my understanding. Where, like, with Rome, you at least would learn of, oh, the 10th Legion, the 9th Legion, or whatever.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, so Antiochus the First, Soter, the savior.
Turning begins. What does that mean? Oh, tutoring begins. Sorry, I thought that said turning.
No, tutoring. Essentially, you take a child, have them be sent off to a tutor, and when they come of age, to have some nice sort of stats, if you will.
Handy. Very handy, actually.
Yeah, it can be. But yeah.
Why do we even bother sending out spies if they're just gonna fail all the time?
Well, because they're good at getting reconnaissance, and sometimes the odd sabotage. But mostly it's reconnaissance.
They always end up getting discovered, so I guess I'm just kind of surprised that they don't really act on the information.
Well, all I have to do is just, I'm mostly trying to see, who owns what settlement, what armies are nearby. DEI nerfed agents quite a bit from what they were like in Vanilla Rome 2.
Alright then.
You know, in Vanilla, a spy could practically decimate an army. Which is constant poisoning. And I mean that by the time your army would take them on, there'd basically be nothing left. You could just auto-resolve it. You know, so they nerfed them considerably. Spies can't do anything like that. They just, at most, can maybe reduce movement speed and movement range. So that's how we got Seleukidai. So yeah, we sent a diplomat to Parthiba, and they gave us Seleukidai.
Maybe a nice ally to have in the future.
Well, that faction is a satrap of ours. They're a satrapy. So we control them. Anyways.
Oh, okay then.
But yeah. Yeah, I'm planning to fight Parthia soon in the campaign. Where I'm at the moment.
What do we gain exactly from attacking Parthius?
Come, my friend.
Well, Nisa provides a nice warhorse resource, which can be nice to buff up cavalry.
I accepted the name.
party, and you also probably get some nice local units. Local kind of party and style units. And if we subjugate party, we can get access to some party and units. Though I can get that already with Partava. But party was also kind of a big rival to the Seleucids. At least to a certain extent they were. They were quite a trouble for the Seleucids and the Romans. So move an army down to Armenia to help stabilize that. Aesop. Parsa.
What's so good about Parsa?
They're just one of our satrapies. So we're moving our army, the Heraclidae, down to Antioch. At the moment they're in Mesopotamia. Yeah, converting temples now to the Grove of Nymphs to help get more public order.
Order's a good thing.
Because even now it's been a big problem for a lot of my territories.
Really? How so?
It's just, I don't know, I think just partly a lot of the slave stuff. I kept enslaving and I think that's caused a lot of public order issues. Just a lot of issues and not the best management.
When you keep slaving all the time, you know, it's bound to bite you back in the ass eventually, you know.
Oh yeah,
so...
a lot of slave revolts, public order problems, it's a pain.
Especially when you keep dozens of slaves around and that never stop, you know.
I'm trying what I can to kind of mitigate it, and I'm still figuring it out, because there's a way to get this stuff this way to work. You know, that's why I'm building one of those slave buildings. They help a bit with servile unrest, but yeah.
I dare not ask.
I'm not exactly sure how building a house for slaves helps exactly, but
It's just part of the thing. It's like a slave market.
Okay.
But anyways, I believe we're coming to the end.
Aw.
But yeah, it was, we're now sending our army to Gabala.
Right then. We will see you all in the next session then. Until then, be sure to leave a comment, like and subscribe, and we will see you all very soon.
Indeed, thanks for watching.